here so it works properly. Here. Sorry about that. Takes me a minute sometimes. But there we go. I'm gonna get the live chat going. Can everybody hear me? Make sure my microphone's on. My microphone is on. So hopefully you can hear me. Let's see. We've got HS, Frank the Tank, Laura Taylor, Joseph. Is it Tavir or Tevere? Joseph, I see you in the streams. Work now? Okay, are we back? The stream cut out. I don't know, suddenly I got kicked off the internet and my iPad restarted and it was pretty ridiculous. But I think I'm back in. So let's see if it works. Let's see. I see that we have Diotaro in here, and Mart, and Kevin Zay, Paula Carroll, Charuz. Okay, we're back. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? Eric Feck, hello. Marimba Girl, Petsotics, greetings. Okay, just need confirmation that everybody can hear me. I want to make sure that I don't start the stream without a little bit of confirmation there. So Paula says yes, and there's Mr. and Mrs. Morelia. Working for now, yes. Laura Taylor says it's working. Okay, we're good. All right. Well, I have some questions, some Patreon questions I wanted to get to early on in the stream so I don't forget. They can be difficult to work in later in the stream, and I want to make sure that I cover those. So the Patreon questions I have, two of them. Vance says, do you have any experience with aquatic in parentheses freshwater isopods? And I do. In fact, the first isopods that I ever kept and bred were aquatic freshwater isopods. I've also kept and bred marine aquatic isopods, which are really easy if you have a reef tank and you put live rock in. It's pretty much impossible not to do that. But the freshwater ones may be a little less common in aquaria. I was about 13 years old when I got my first tank that was really mine, that I knew what I was doing with to some degree, and to some degree, I emphasize that. And I went and captured some aquatic isopods that lived in an irrigation canal near my house, put them into that tank, and pretty soon had them breeding. And then later, I made a really bad decision as far as the isopods were concerned, and I put some newts in that tank, and they ate them all. So, okay, so Mark can hear me all the way from Canada. Awesome. Okay, and good evening to you as well. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Looks like Arabic there, but you're welcome here. Glad to have you here. Yeah, there is a bit of glare on the glasses. Let's see. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read comments like this, but we'll try it. Okay, so anyway, I do have that experience. It's not a long experience because, like I said, I put newts in with them, but I just put them in a tank, started feeding them. The tank had an undergravel filter in it. This was years ago. This was like 35 years ago, a long time ago. And they did fine until I introduced predators to the tank. So yeah, they were really fun though, and I'd like to do that again. I know of a place nearby where I find them. I just can't collect them in that particular spot. But the fact that they are there kind of heartens me and means that if I can find a suitable, similar habitat where I can collect, then I can hopefully get some going. That would be fun. So another comment or question. This is from Droff. It says, any tips on getting duckies to reproduce? I've had mine for about 4 months. They seem to be doing okay, but no babies yet. Is there anything you've found to encourage them to breed? Thanks. Well, there could be a couple of things going on. One is you may need to wait for the Allee effect to kick in, and I believe that's spelled A-L-L-E-E, named after a researcher. Basically an effect where the population density can increase reproductive frequency. There may be a variety of reasons why that's true, and probably going into the variety of possible reasons is beyond the scope of the question. But basically, if you have, say, 10 isopods in a 6-quart 10 rubber duckies in a 6-quart. The population density in that 6-quart is fairly low. And so they're going to tend, a lot of isopods tend to do this, where they will shift their reproductive mode from I need to reproduce quickly because I need to make sure I get my genes into this large pool of genes, to I don't have very many reproductive options. So I think my best option is to grow as big as I can to an extent before I breed. And when I do, produce a lot of babies. And so if you do have a fairly low population density, that may be what's going on. And that's one of the reasons I don't really like 6 counts, because that encourages this sort of issue to occur. So one thing, based on the size of your container, if you are in a 6-quart with 10 or something like that, you may want to reduce the container size just a bit, and that can get them breeding. That's what I ended up doing. My first rubber ducky experience, I think I got 10 or 11 and put them in a 6-quart and didn't really get much reproduction, maybe a little, but not much for a while. And then I started getting die-off eventually. And I thought, I've had these for a while. They're probably not dying of old age, but something's going on. So I consolidated them into a much smaller container, bought, I think it was just a few more. It was like 4 to 6 more. So I had, a decent number of isopods in this small container. It was a small container too. And then within a month or so, I had babies, and they just never really stopped from there. They've been times when the population has increased more quickly or more slowly, but that seemed to do the trick. So population density may be key with rubber ducky isopods, as well as others. So hopefully that helps. Now I'm going to have to put my glasses on to be able to read comments on my iPad here as I film. So let's see. Oh, okay, it's Mohammed. Great. Yeah, Mohammed and I were communicating by email earlier today. Great. And I see Sean Meister's here and Young Lad's here. Let's see. Is it okay to use coconut fiber or liner as a background in garter snake vivarium? Yeah, I would say so. People do that a lot. Like you're making like the put the expanding foam, like Great Stuff foam, and you put the silicone over it, and then you put the coconut fiber into that in the background, or just the liner, like the coconut fiber kind of woven mat, and put it in the background. I don't see any problem with doing either of those with garters. Should be fine. Delta Evergreen, hello. And thank you, Frank. Yes, we need to hit that like button. We have 31 people here watching the stream as it appears in 22 likes. So if you'll hit the like button now, if you haven't already, that'll help get the stream out there for people. I see some people are already starting to hit it. That's awesome. And let's see, who was asking questions? Was it Duke earlier who was asking a question or wanted to know if Duke and Enzo the Iggies, yeah, wanted to know if we could ask questions. So here we go. So Duke and Enzo says, just got into icepod keeping after a while of admiring them. When I find them while herping is the base of my substrates, I'm using pot of gold organic soil. Is this acceptable as a substrate base? Probably is. I haven't used that particular mix, but I use organic compost as a main component of my substrates. And so as long as you're having success with it, I don't think it is a problem. There'll be other things you want to add to it. You may want to add calcium source and of course lots of leaf litter, but as far as the base substrate, that should be fine. And hopefully that helps, Duke. Yotaro says, Russ, I'm so excited. My garters are breeding. Ruby's going to be a grandma. Fantastic. So for those of you who might not know, Ruby is my adult female red-sided garter snake, the Thamnophis sertalis pariettalis, in this case, Montana locality, not the California red-sided. But she has been producing babies since 2021. Every year she's produced at least one clutch. One year she produced one big clutch and one very tiny clutch. So she's produced 4 clutches. And she is either gravid right now. I have my suspicions she may already be gravid from this year. I hope so. Fingers crossed that she's already gravid. And I have seen a lot of courtship activity, but it seems to have died down some. So I'm hoping that means that she's done. She's already gravid. So I am so happy for you, Yotaro. This is so cool that Ruby is going to be a grandma. It's fantastic. Yotaro, did you buy it from the 21 clutch or the 22 clutch? Because I guess either one of those could be old enough. But that is fantastic. Congratulations to Ruby's children and to you. Charuz, hopefully I'm saying that right. asks, let's see, hey Russ, have Oniscus ocellus BC Maple and Mardi Gras Dalmatian been crossed yet? I can't find much info on it. I have both morphs and would like to cross them eventually as a fun project. They have been, and I've seen them, and the results are fantastic. I am sorry that I cannot recall who and where I saw that, but I have seen the cross. Where was that? Apologize, can't remember right now where it is, but it's doable. And the offspring, of course, are going to look like wild types the first generation, but if you cross those wild type looking double hets, and you're going to get some individuals that should be BC Maple and Mardi Gras. So they'll have the orange markings, but they'll have the patterning of Mardi Gras Dalmatian. So very doable, and the fact that you have them both would be, you can do it. You have what you need. I would recommend putting a small number of very, very young individuals together, and then as soon as you see wild types in there, pull those out. Separate all the wild types you can find when they're very small, put them all together in their own bin, and then when they produce offspring, you should get a small percentage of them that have both hets in the parents, where the hets in the parents combine so that they are homozygous for both traits, both the Mardi Gras and the orange. Oh, Theropod Hunter, you got a Pandinus Imperator. That's fantastic. An Emperor Scorpion. Harder to find than they used to be these days. Fortunately, there is some captive breeding going on because they used to just be collected crazily in the wild, and now that's either dried up or slowed down, but now you can find them captive bred. So fantastic. So Mystic Drac, any veggies to avoid feeding to isopods and millipedes? Well, it depends on who you talk to. I've heard some people say be careful with avocado because avocado has some antifungal agents in it that can be toxic to a lot of creatures. I don't do it anymore, but I used to feed like avocado skins. I'd wash the avocado really well and then feed the open peel to millipedes and stuff, and they loved that. But I don't do it anymore for that reason because I don't know how safe it is. Some things don't seem to be received very well, but it does seem to depend on the source of the thing and the different species of isopod. Offhand, there's not very many that I can think of. Just if you do use it, peel it and or wash it well, typically are some of the things to think about. Let's see. So Duke, you've added ground eggshells, leaf litter, and white rot wood. Okay, I think you're doing fine, Duke. Sounds like you're going to be fine with your substrate. And Mohammed, thank you. I love this background too. I have two of them. One of them here, this is my downstairs filming corner, and then another when I do live interviews, I have it upstairs that I can put behind me. I hang it from the ceiling, and so I have a kind of some consistency. It's kind of fun. So let's see. OG Jewel Dish. Where did I get my Panda King t-shirt? My wife got it for me. I think it was Redbubble, I want to say, but it was a present. I think it was birthday or Christmas or something. So I love it. I love the fact that the Panda King is on bamboo. See what they did there? Pretty fun. So that's cool. And let's see. Yotaro says, I still can't tell the sex of my middle child though. Definitely have one female, Trixie, and one male thorax, but the middle-sized one, Starlight, is still a mystery. They're from the 21 clutch. Okay, so they're from the first clutch. Huh. So the middle one is still a mystery. That does happen for sure. That is really kind of can be frustrating. I wanted to, speaking of that, Mohammed had a request. So Mohammed, if you can keep what we talked about in the email kind of secret for right now, but I want to show you something. I just happen to have some of my snakes here. So, hey sir, where are you going? Okay. So this is Rufus. I don't know if we'll be able to see him decently, hopefully. You can see his red. Can you see his red? If you can see his red, please reply something about the red color that you can see. I want to make sure you can see it. Let's see. All right, so Charuz, you've seen the video on the Orange Dalmatian project? Okay, great. Yeah, same steps in this case. the way the genes work with those species and those particular traits. So that was Rufus. He's my reddest individual, and sometimes he looks even redder than that, but especially like right after a shed and in great light, he looks fantastic. This is Houdini. He's a little more yellow. His stripe is more yellow. Got some very good yellow on his stripe. His red is a little bit more muted, but he does have some. Okay. So yeah, Yotaro, I guess you may find out just if it ends up being gravid or you see it mating or something, I guess. But yeah, they're lovable all the same. I agree 100%. So there we go. And oh, Charlie can see it. 503 can see it. Yotaro can see it. Sean can see it. Okay, cool. They're seeing it. Yeah. So this one has some fantastic yellow and not quite as much red, but still gorgeous. And then let's see if we can see the mom, the mother. Okay, she is definitely not nearly as colorful as the males, but she does have some red. Shows up more when she's gravid because you get the scale spread. It shows up quite a bit from between the scales. But she's a big girl. I don't even know you can tell how big she is, but she's a big girl for a garter. And can you see her red at all from here? I'm just curious. You're gonna get on my head. Yeah, Yotaro, I agree. I love our corn snake. I would love to get some hognose snakes, but the garters are so visually oriented and seem like they have a lot going on in their heads. Okay, so let's see. Laura says, "Can't wait to see my yard pets come back this spring. Miss seeing the colors." Yeah, that's awesome when you have them in the yard. I love that. Yeah, she has lots of red. Good, good. Being color deficient, it's hard for me to judge what you can see, and it's hard for me to know what the camera's picking up because I'm sure she's more red than she appears on camera. But yeah, she's a big girl. She's not that far off from 4 feet. She's not quite there. The last time I measured her, she was not that many inches off. So she's getting close. Um, let's see. I think I missed some things earlier, so I want to try to see if there were some comments I missed. So let's see. Duke says, just notice my soil has naturally sourced mycorrhizae. I know this helps roots with uptake of nutrients in plants, but could you tell me if it's potentially dangerous in isopods? I have purposely introduced mycorrhizae to my isopod enclosures. I wouldn't worry about it. Let's see. Oh yeah, Charus, definitely recommend garters. You can see more red from closer up, I'm assuming. Let's see. So, Master of Contraption. Hey, from Scotland. Oh, greetings. Do you know anything about Archaeostreptus species Pretoria? The specimens available here are all wild caught and seemingly all male. Do you have an idea why there is a lack of females? I know the genus a bit because that's the giant African millipede genus. I'm not sure quite about this species or if this is actually a species, if it's just gigas with locality, Pretoria, South Africa being the locality of this gigas, this gigas, or if it's actually a separate species. The specimens available here are all wild caught, real male. Not sure why. It seems like though I've heard of that happening, and I heard this happen with gigas, whether this is gigas or not. Heard of that happening, and I'm not sure if there's something about how they collect them in the wild that they're going after males that are wandering looking for females, and the females tend to be not in the same places, or what's going on. I'm not sure. That's a good question. So Theropod Hunter went to a sea life center on Saturday and they had a semi-aquatic display with garter snakes. That sounds fantastic. And since you are across the pond, do they have any San Francisco garters? Can't keep those in captivity here, but they have them in Europe, have them in the UK, they have them in lots of places, just not the US. So I'm wondering if they happen to have any of those. They seem really popular over there, and I can see why, because they're gorgeous. Somehow I got it in the dark. I'm too dark here. Okay, so Nikolai wants to know if I have a colony of rubber ducky isopods. Technically, I have 3 colonies of rubber ducky isopods, 3 different setups. So yes, I do. Yotaro, I'm tempted. I am tempted. Oh, we have a super chat from Mr. and Mrs. Morelia. Thank you so much. A donation for your isopod addiction so we can appreciate an impressive collection while maintaining a small group ourselves. Love your garters too. Thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Morelia. Always great support for the channel. Really appreciate it. And happy to help fuel your isopod addiction vicariously. It's fantastic. Today, not many isopods in the live stream, but of course they'll be back. Really appreciate that. So Nikolai, you can never find rubber duckies other than the white, like the white duckies? Huh, interesting. Well, I'll have to see what my numbers are looking like in terms of sales, but sure, contact me and we'll see how it's going. Ooh, Arctic, super Arctic albino toffee belly and condas this year. Ooh, I do love the hognose. My wife's not a big fan, but maybe we can convert her. Okay, so Theropod you've seen them at the local reptile expo, but they are there. Okay. What isopods do you recommend for garter snake vivarium, Mohammed? Okay. Well, you can go with several. I think the 2 that are my favorite for garter snakes vivarium so far are the ones that I've tried. I haven't tried a huge number, but of the ones that I've tried, I really like Porcelionides pruinosus, like the powder blues, but any color variety of powder blues or any mix of the color variety of powder blues. So party mix, orange cream, whatever you want, are really good. And I've also noticed that Porcelio dilatatus, the giant canyons, are awesome. And if I had to choose between the 2, kind of depends on how moist you keep the substrate, because I found out that since Porcelio dilatatus are so much more fossorial, they can handle a little bit more dryness on the surface. The Porcelionides pruinosus, if the substrate gets a little dry, then they can die out pretty fast. And I have lost them a couple of times in some of my drier vivariums. Like in the ones where I have live plants and have to keep the live plants, keep on top of the humidity and the moisture in that corner for the live plants, they do really well. But in some where it's been a little bit drier, not as well. So the dilatatus, the giant canyons, seem to do really, really well. So either one, just make sure that you don't let a spot dry out. Okay. Oh, welcome, Vance. Welcome. And I did hit your question at the beginning of the stream, so just so you know, when you do the replay, you'll be able to see that. Oh, sorry, I'm doing a snake switch out right now. I think Ruby is a little bit tired of me holding her. I'm going to put these back. I'm going to grab a couple more snakes. Be right there. I brought a few snakes downstairs and figured you might want to see them, since Mohammed specially requested to see the males of my red-sided projects. And here is one of my melanistics. Why not, right? Love the melanistics. Let's see. So I am trying to catch up on the chat. So Corey, been wanting to look into stuff like this. Do you need any type of paperwork or anything to be able to sell bugs and reptiles? It depends. Depends on your state, depends on your country, and it depends on the species you're working with. Like, for example, isopods. To sell isopods, there are you need a permit to be able to ship them across state lines. Some isopods can't be legally shipped across state lines. It happens a lot anyway, but um, they are technically illegal to ship across state lines without a permit, and some can only be shipped with a containment facility, and some can be shipped with just a simple permit. So I have a permit to ship about 20 species of isopods across state lines, but it also depends on the state. I can ship about 11 of them to Florida, for example. I can ship more than that to Louisiana, but not quite the 20. And some states have no restrictions, and some states, well, Hawaii, you can't ship any at all. So it very much depends on where you are. Sometimes even the cities have restrictions. Snakes and other reptiles have restrictions too. There are some states where you can't ship native snakes to, or snakes of particular sizes, or various things. So that depends quite a bit as well. Ooh, I need to see some pictures, Yotaro. Do you have a place where you're posting pictures of your hognose projects? They sound pretty awesome. So Aftech not quite shipping to Canada yet. Um, that would be cool. Hopefully someday, but not yet. What is your oldest pet? Good question. It is possible that I have some Opaiula shrimp that are actually the oldest, because I got some of those shrimp back in 2004, I believe, and some of them may well still be alive. So 2004 is right. Yeah. So I may have some 20-year-old shrimp, but I'm not sure because it's hard to tell, and they've had a lot of babies. So um, let's see. What was I saying about that? I also have a cat. We have a cat. My family has a cat that is, he's going to be 18 in April. He is now unfortunately blind. He was sighted for most of his life, but as he's grown older, he's gotten some pretty serious cataracts, and probably not operable at this point, especially at his age. And he's definitely slowing down, but he's 18, and people have cats that are older than that, but that's a pretty old cat. So if it's not one of my shrimp, it's got to be my cat, our cat, not just my cat. What are you doing on? What are you doing, buddy? Okay. So Nikolai, are you a scientist or just a hobbyist? I guess it depends on who you talk to and how you define scientist. But I'm not. I don't have a degree in isopodology or anything like that. So Mohammed, I do sell isopods, and I sell the isopods I was talking about. Now, let's see if we can get a close up on this. It's kind of hard with this camera because it's the small, not so excellent camera on the iPad on the front. Is it front facing or rear facing? I think it's the front facing camera, the one that you can't adjust very well. This is the one it is, but I really love the appearance of these snakes. I love their bellies. They're just gorgeous. It's funny when they're in blue. One of these is in blue. Their belly looks really kind of blue. Let me see if I have that one. Well, I do have that one, but let me see if I can get it to show up in the light, because it looks very different. Oh yeah, here it is. We can compare the two. It's kind of fun. The two bellies. Let's see if we can see the difference. Look at that. One on the left is in blue. The one on the right is just normal. Let's see if I can get a better shot. Look at that. Isn't that something? Love that. Okay. Let's see. Looking. Oh, are you going to get caught in there? Please don't do that. That's not exciting. Paula, I just sold you on garters. That's awesome. Okay. So yes, honey, I recently subscribed to your channel as one of the few that got me into isopods. I used to think they were gross, but your love for them made me appreciate their beauty. Thank you so much. That I love to hear that. That is fantastic. So Mystic Drake, how to differentiate dwarf white isopods from baby dairy cows. That can be tricky. That can be super tricky. Um, as a practical matter, without magnification, it can be extremely hard to do because they're very similar in color when they're tiny. And I've had people contact me and say, "Oh no, my dairy cow bin has been inundated with dwarf whites," and then they find out later they're just baby dairy cows. So it can be tricky. When you magnify them, there are some differences. Like the eyes are very different. Um, you can distinguish them from looking at their eyes is one way to do it. But you have to have really high magnification to be able to do it. Let's see. So Nikolai, I've heard people having success with dragon snakes, hard to keep alive. I have heard that too. Very hard to keep alive. These are tangled so much in my glasses, it's ridiculous. Well, not my glasses, but my lanyard. I don't think I would try keeping any at this point. I think they are not because they're so difficult to keep. I wouldn't try right now. If I had a dedicated facility, which I hope to have someday, I looked into that, by the way, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if I had a dedicated facility and I could set up something just like a perfect setup for dragon snakes, I'd have to research it extensively because I don't know enough about them. I just know that they're super hard to take care of. I've seen a few videos on it. That I would, if I could do that, I might try it, but only if I had a huge amount of time and space and energy to commit to try to getting them to breed in captivity. Oh yeah. So Aftec, glad you want to hold snakes again. Hopefully you can do that. It is a wonderful sensory experience, as 503 is saying. I absolutely adore it. It is one of the most relaxing things that I can think of to do, and it's like my happy place, my Zen zone. It just so makes me happy. So I love it. So Meredith, garter snakes are excellent if you want one that stays smallish, especially males. Males of most garter snake species. It does depend on the species. The size depends on the species, but these are adult males. They're not fully grown because snakes continue to grow throughout their lives slowly, but they've done, at least 90% of their growth already, and they're not that big. So a male garter can be an excellent choice, and you can keep two male garters in a small space, and they can be quite happy together. So definitely a good option, Meredith. Yeah, I can bet, Nikolai. The husbandry is difficult. I would have to do a lot of research. But I'm one of those people that if I had unlimited space and time, that's one thing I would just do. I would find species like I've wanted to really breed blue death feigning beetles because breeding them in captivity was super rare. And so I said, well, let me do it. I'm going to figure it out. I want to do it. So I did, and now more people are doing it. And I would just do all that kind of stuff all the time. That's what I want to do when I have a facility. That's one of the things I want to do is just take it on those projects and figure things out and share it with people. That's really, I would love to do that. Um, Speaking of the facility, I priced out getting my shed outside, getting power run to that shed to see if I could start turning it into a small facility of sorts. It's about $1,500 to get the shed, just to get electricity to the shed, which is cool. I mean, that's something I might be able to eventually save up for. It's not something I can do right now, but $1,500, kind of approachable. That's not insulating the shed or anything, so that means the best I could do at that point I could have like an insulated large cooler that I turn into sort of a warm zone that I could heat that cooler and keep some things out there in the winter, and then in the summer I wouldn't need it, but not ideal. So I also need to figure out insulation and stuff for it. So I have to work on that too. Mike Titula has a shovel-nosed snake that is less than 12 inches long and eats insects. I wish they were more common in the hobby. Truly gorgeous species too. Awesome. Another one that I really love is, what's it called? A variable ground snake. Super colorful, really interesting. And they eat arthropods mostly. They're kind of fossorial, not very day visible, but kind of cool that they'll eat things like roaches, crickets, centipedes, that kind of stuff. So theropod hunter. Has anybody read about phasmid color morphs? It's a stick insect that develops spider plant camouflage. That's super cool. 503 has a pygmy python, 7 years old, 20 inches long. Holy cow. Is that an Enteresia? Oh, African house snakes. I almost pulled the trigger on a black African house snake. Sometimes I wish I still had done that. And it looked like this guy in blue, a lot like this, and it was similar in size too. It was a male, so they don't get as big as the females. Let's see. So Nikolai majoring in entomology, but reptiles interest me, used to foster bearded dragons. Cool. Yeah, 503. Maybe we need to do that. Maybe an auction would work. Hmm. That's a good thought. We need to do something. And plenty of people who donate. See, so what you're saying is do an auction where people would donate items, and then people would buy those items, and then that would go towards a facility like that. So young lad going to be raising a beetle, huh? Or possibly what species? Okay, very cool. 503. That idea fascinates me too. Getting a pygmy python of some kind. So Mohammed, what age do you recommend starting handling garter snakes? I think really early is good. Um, really early. I would say, you let them settle in once you get them, but once you've let them settled in, you want to start interacting with them. When they're very little, they really hate being approached from the top, so it's good to get them into a front opening enclosure that they can't escape from, and start offering them food from tongs. So they associate you with food, that they don't associate your fingers specifically with food, and just slow moving handling. Once they start coming up to you, you can do things like you have the tweezers or the tongs with the food on them, and you kind of lead the snake up to follow the tongs up onto your hand and feed it there. And you can feed them directly in your hands, hold the tongs and feed them like this. That's what I did a lot with these little guys, and you can see they're super tame. They don't fear me at all. Once I've had a chance to work with snakes long enough, garter snakes. I mean, they're super chill in general. Some species more than others, but they generally learn to tame up pretty fast. And it's a matter of working with them frequently. Yeah, I've heard, Mr. and Mrs. Melia, that the African house snakes are very, very excellent personalities. So someday, I really want a melanistic black house snake, so they're even darker on their bellies. They don't even gray out on the belly so much when they're the melanistics. I don't know how common those are in the hobby, but I've seen videos of them. They look awesome. Well, that's certainly worth some more thought. 503. I love it. That would be really cool. Laura Taylor, start filling the figure eight to break for the auction. So, young lad, do you just get a larva? Or do you find it? Is that how you do it? Oh, there are a lot of likes. That's pretty sweet. We have 50 in the house here and 55 likes. Wow, pretty cool. Thanks for pointing that out, Sean. So, Mystic Drake, do you grab your snake directly from their tanks and handle them every day for 15 minutes? That's not really how I do it. Um, not to say that that can't be done, but I would really recommend checking out what Lori Torini uh, recommends for snake handling. She is a professional, and she trains people on her channel how to work with snakes. Now, garter snakes are easier to work with than some snakes, just admittedly. Um, and so they're pretty easy to tame down. Some snakes are a lot harder to tame down, but uh, she has all techniques that'll work for just about any species of snake, and she works with a huge collection of snakes of different species, and She has amazing information. So I would check out that channel, Lori Torini. I interviewed her once, and she has some really good techniques. She has choice-based handling, and she goes over that. She has using targeting to help get snakes habituated to interaction with humans and so on. Really cool stuff. Okay, young lad, you just find a beetle larva and put it in substrate. That's pretty cool. So Yotaro, about how long is the gestation period for the red-sided garters? It varies based on temperature quite a bit and just individuals to some degree. Oh, I think we got a sticker or something. Oh, we do. We got a sticker from Vance. Thank you, Vance. Appreciate that. It takes about, it's approximately 2 to 2.5 months, but it can be a little longer. It can be a little shorter. Mine generally takes about 2.5. And that's, partially, at least to some extent, based on the temperatures that my garters get. Yeah, 503. We need to chat about this at some point. Yes, let's continue to think about this. Maybe we can chat on Instagram about it a bit. And thank you, 503, for putting Lori Torini's channel up. Definitely worth checking out. You're going to climb up on my. You are. You're going to do that again, aren't you? So, our aquatic universe. Good type of snake to get for a first time. There are quite a few that are really good for first time snakes. Corn snakes are great. Garter snakes can be great. I've helped people get their first snakes that are garter snakes. Corn snakes are fantastic. A lot of people do ball pythons. There are many that can be good. Kevin Zay says, I have an eastern rat snake that I don't think will ever get over his defensiveness completely. That's okay. I just know he's not one I can hand off. No, that's fair. Yeah. And some snakes are like that. And that is okay, I think. So Therapod Hunter, I think it does help to handle them regularly. You don't have to do it like every day. It's not like they forget you in a day, but I do think handling them regularly helps. I think, like I was saying before, associating you with food, but not associating your fingers with food is important, because then they realize they get something when they come and contact you. They sometimes get a reinforcement, and that helps. And sometimes reinforcement for snakes like garter snakes, they love to come out and explore, and so that in itself is reinforcing, and so I think that helps a lot too. So Michael Schroeder, what size container would you recommend to get a colony of isopods started from 10 to 12? Um, a lot of people use the 6 quart, and the 6 quart is not bad, but sometimes when I want to make sure isopods get a really good start because of the Ali effect, basically the smaller containers makes for a higher population density that can make them reproduce faster. I'll put them in something like a third to half to even a quarter the size of a 6 quart, and put them in there and let them start breeding. And once they start breeding, and I see a couple of batches of young, then I will put them in something. I'll put them in a 6 quart. So, Mohammed, how many garter snakes can live comfortably in a 40-gallon breeder? Well, it does depend on the species, because the species, varies by size. It depends on the size of the individuals. It depends on whether you're doing males or females or mixed, because females can get really long, depending on the species, right? And the males generally stay a lot smaller. I'd say if you're just doing males, you can easily do a trio of males, maybe even 4 males in a 40-gallon breeder, but I would say more space is better. More space is definitely better. Garters will use it. If you can put them in something longer than a 40-gallon breeder, do it. And I'd say, a lot of times breeders and so on will use much smaller containers, but they really do appreciate the space, and they'll use it. And the more varied and interesting you make that space, the better. Let's see. Oh yeah, Meredith. Yeah, if you put certain foods out, some isopods will really go after it. And freeze-dried shrimp seems to be a favorite. one of the smellier ones. Oh, yeah, thank you, Yotaro, for putting that up with the, okay, red-headed reptiles. Check it out for the hognose photos of what you're doing. That's awesome. They really do love the glasses score, don't they? I don't know what's so fun about it. And Yotaro, you still have that corn snake? That's fantastic. Tattooed on your arm, so you'll always have that corn snake to some degree. Hello, Aries. So Vance made the mistake of putting 10 pandas in a 24 quart months ago. Pretty sure there's at most 10 in there. Yeah. Yeah. And that is basically what I talked about when I was answering the questions about the rubber duckies, is that you often can get a better breeding by crowding them a little bit more, not too much, but crowding them a little bit more at the beginning. And that will often get them breeding. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Merle, you just quoted Hocus Pocus, didn't you? So, Mohammed, you have to feed it rodents, speaking of garter snakes, I assume, or is it okay to feed worms, chicken hearts, etc.? You don't have to feed them rodents. I like to. I think that's one of the better sources of complete food. And it's not the only thing I give my garters, but I like to use rodents, but you don't have to. No, if you feed them things like, you've got some good worms, you can get a source of clean worms from the pet store. You can get the thiaminase-free fish. You can chop up things like chicken hearts and chicken gizzards and supplement them a bit with some calcium and vitamin supplements, that sort of thing. Then you can totally get away without feeding them rodents. Reptilinks are another good option, so you don't have to use rodents. Some of the reptilinks have rodent ingredients, but it's not the same as feeding them a direct rodent. Exactly. So yeah, you can definitely do it without feeding rodents. I don't breed rodents myself. I have before. I don't currently breed rodents. It's been years, but I have done it. I just get frozen thawed, and I buy a few hundred rodents, frozen thawed rodents at a time. Typically, I make an order with. I have a few people around that live near me that also keep snakes. That I'll text them and say, I'm going to do a rodent order. You want in on this one? And we'll order from Rodent Pro typically, and we can get free shipping because we're ordering together. Usually I order enough that I can get free shipping anyway, but we can all get free shipping on the order, which is nice. Where are you going? So hopefully that helps explain that. And yeah, I'm sure, Kevin, you're familiar with it. Based on some of the pictures and videos you've sent me, I can totally see that. Let's see. Tim, Intrepid Exotics, and his work with the Sri Lankan python. Any thoughts? I'll have to check that out. I don't really have any thoughts yet because I hadn't heard of that, but it sounds cool. So between Sirens and Sicilians, which do you think is the most interesting? I don't know. I think having a siren as a pet, I think would be more interesting. You'd probably see it more, but it depends on the species because some of the Sicilians are aquatic and you might see that one enough. But the fossorial Sicilians you probably wouldn't see a whole lot of. Siren you'd probably see more, and it would be more interesting to watch it feed and things like that. So yes, Honey says, wanted to buy the rubber ducky ones, but after I saw your video on them, I realized I was not ready as a beginner. I now own 2 isopods I found in the woods. They're so chill. Well, that's a great way to start out. It really is. So Yotaro likes Rodent Pro too. Good to know. Another recommendation for Rodent Pro. Because I know that a lot of people have their favorites, and it also depends on where you live and so on. And I'm not too far away from Rodent Pro, I guess, but I'm not super close either. But I like them a lot. And they usually have really good deals. They call it is it hot deals or something like that. And I always check the hot deals, and they typically have things discounted on that page. So yeah, and you can get different colors of things. You can get different types of. It's not just rodents that they sell. I got was it my last order or the order before that? I think it was the order before that. I got some quail, some young quail, and I give the quail to my bigger garters, giving it to my female garters. Like Ruby will take like a couple of adult mice and a quail in one feeding. She eats a lot. She'll probably take more than that, honestly, but I usually top her off. I'll say like 2 mice, maybe a couple of quail, and you're good for a few days. The males are really too small probably to take the quail at the size that I bought them at, but I'll also get chicks, and I feed chicks to um, my corn. Corn snake loves the chicks. I'll switch off between mice and chicks, or sometimes I'll give a mouse and a chick, or a couple of mice and a quail chick or something to the corn snake, and likes that. And then a lot of the people that I buy rodents with, when we go in on them, I remember some of them, they all have ball pythons. Everybody but me in the group has ball python. Not everybody, but many of the people in the group have ball pythons. And I said, hey, you want to try a couple of chicks and see what your ball pythons think? And good results. They like those. They like the chicks right off. Kind of neat. Um, so somebody, it's like a dash. It doesn't have a name. I actually just got 5 new species of ice pods from Smugbug today. It's been a great day. Fantastic. Oh, Tennyson's here. Awesome. Good to see you, Tennyson. Um, how did you do on the auction, the roach crossing auction? I've been watching the dead stream of it, and it's pretty cool. And I noticed you were there. So, Minyasa, is it true that feeding poultry to snakes results in stinkier cage mess? Um, you know what? I haven't done a careful check of that. Um, haven't done a careful check of that. Uh, I think that reptilinks are really pretty nice as far as they tend to reduce the smell from what I've noticed, as opposed to other things. But I haven't really noticed a huge difference between chicks and mice, but maybe I just haven't paid that much attention. Let's see. How the mealworm's doing, any beetles yet? Well, I think you gave me a couple of beetles to start out with, and a whole bunch of the larvae have pupated, and I actually need to check and see if there are any new beetles in there. I put them on like a bioactive substrate, deep substrate with a moisture end and leaves and all that. So they're a little harder to see for now, but I'll keep an eye on it. I got some Wisman mealworms from Tennyson Kingsley, and if you don't know what Wisman mealworms are, um, Kim Wisman and who's the other Wisman? I can't remember the name of the other Wisman. The Wismans are a couple that have been in the hobby for a long time, and they selectively worked with mealworms, both in terms of very careful husbandry and some genetic selection to make a larger type of mealworm. And Roach Crossing offers those, and Tennyson got some, and I got some from Tennyson. So, Laura Taylor, how much destruction can scuds cause to plants in a tank? Are they about like isopods eat what they can depending on food available and type of scud? Good question. I think scuds, they tend to like softer plants, but they'll go after tougher plants, even like Java fern, if they get too hungry. And it also depends on what's in the tank, because anything that can control scuds in the tank will help a ton. Case in point, I had a 5-gallon tank with a betta in it for a long time in my office. And I had various plants growing in it, including Java fern, I think Anubias, probably some other things. I don't quite remember what all was in there. It's been years. But I remember taking the betta home to put it in another tank temporarily, like during vacation. I was gone for a few weeks, whatever, for vacation, and so I brought the betta home so that it could be taken care of properly when I was at work, and I just left the tank there. And scuds had been in the tank in low numbers when the betta was there because it was eating them. But as soon as the betta was not in the tank, they went crazy, and I wasn't adding food to the tank while I was gone for a few weeks, and so the excuse me, the scuds decimated the plants, including the Java fern, which was kind of horrible. Bolivari amber duckies, Venezuela blonde duckies, granulatum, another pure strain of portentosa. Was it mm, the Riverside portentosa? Oh, and you got the cyanochlora. That's awesome. The blue ones. Oh, Cubaris species sun tiger. Have I even seen those? I'll have to check it out. Get domestic beetles out of your house. It's not terrible yet, but it sees at least one beetle a day. Hmm. Haven't had to contend with that too much. Sounds like you got some great pickups, Tennyson. That's an awesome auction. Oh, you're gonna put some Bolivari in with your amber dubias. Ooh. I'm fascinated by the roach isopod cohabitation dynamic and how the isopods seem to be benefited by the roach frass and so on. Very cool. Do you have plant suggestions for an arid hognose? Got 4 arid low moisture plants, but 2 of them have died. Have you tried some of the low growing sansevieras, snake plant? That could be a good one. Oh, it is the Riverside ones, the UCR. Awesome. Frank the Tank, love that. Scuds are like duckweed. You're excited to keep them, and then you want to get rid of them. That's fair. That's how I usually feel about duckweed. So I have Phoenix planted 24 plus planted 24/7. I just said that wrong, but you know what I mean. Guess it's a full spectrum. So what kind of highlight plants do you recommend for the garter vivarium? You want things that they won't bother a lot. If things that are resilient that bounce back, things like a lemon button fern, some of the philodendron and pothos can be good. Not maybe just not normal pothos because it'll like overgrow, but it depends if you're willing to cut it back frequently. You could do that. I like lemon button fern in there and some of the smaller philodendrons. Snake plant works in with the garters. Cheroos, you're getting the orange hops. I must say, if I were the jealous type, I would be jealous about that because I love Hoffman's egg eye in general. I love the fact that they're orange. They're like the easy version of Magnificus. Love it. That's fantastic. I hope they do really well for you. Um, okay, well, yes, honey, I would wait a couple of generations of keeping those isopods before you, and it may not be even parasites, it could be predators, but a couple of generations, I would say. Oh, you're right, Frank. We're approaching 1 hours. 1 hour. Theropod Hunter said red agabiformis lentis can live alongside most other isopods without an issue. That's cool. Wow, Tennyson, you're really getting your collection going, like you were saying. That's fantastic. Amber bees coming. Those are pretty gorgeous. Yeah, yeah. Huffman's egg eye were my first giant porcellio, and they're really cool. And the fact that they come in orange, someday I would love to get those orange. I'm really trying to be careful not to expand my isopod collection in terms of species I can't ship. Not, I do have some species I can't ship, but I'm trying not to expand them. But sometimes it's hard to avoid. I mean, it's hard to resist the temptation. But I've been pretty good. But you know what I mean. So I think feeding isopods duckweed is awesome because it's a nutritious plant, and then you got something to do with it. I think it was it 503 who told me about it, adding mollies to a tank with duckweed in it. I added a couple of mollies to one of my tanks where duckweed always goes crazy, and that's helping. And yeah, the Pisum will eventually be legal to ship, Tennyson. I think they're um, not on my permits yet because we have to show documentation that they are native, and it has to be like pretty solid documentation that they're native. And once we show that, then we should be able to get them cleared for shipping. I was able to get the species that was once known as Sinella curviceta springtails and is now known as Secobria something or other, uh, cleared for shipping by demonstrating that there were records of it on colembala.org and on what was the other? Was it iNaturalist in 10 different states or something like that? I had to do all of those things. I couldn't do just one of them in order to get them cleared, but it eventually was able to do that, but it took a while. So the isopod permits are tricky. to get to some degree, but there are several places you can find out more about it. Basically, you go through eFile these days. There's a video from Supreme Gecko about isopod permits. So if you do a search for Supreme Gecko isopod permits, and if one of our mods wants to check that out, put that up, you can check it out, and it explains a lot of things about that. Also on my community page, I have a link to a video by Pedro's Pods on the topic too. It's kind of a quick summary. One of them is a long interview, which is full of information, but it's also a long interview on uh, Supreme Gecko. And then the other one on Pedro's Pods is shorter, and I have a link to that one. I think I have a link to both of them on my community page. So definitely worth looking at. So Charuz, if I can get a permit to get, I used to have a permit to receive Hoffman's egg eye, but they've changed it. They've changed how it works. So it's hard to get them unless you have a containment facility. But of course, that's something that could be in my future as well. Well, it is about time to depart. It looks like we have another, no, that's not a question for me. But thank you for Mr. and Mrs. Marilia for joining. Thank you for the super chat as well. Thank you, everyone. It looks like our time is about up. So unless anybody has some last minute questions, it's been great to see you again. I'm sorry I missed last week due to illness. I am feeling considerably better, so I was glad to be back here and see you. I got some hungry snakes to feed. So while I have a snake crawling right up my forehead and obscuring my vision, I will say take care, everyone, stay safe, and catch you on the next one.